Are there any wishing to speak to Bill 2? The member for Banff-Kananaskis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to rise today to speak to Bill 2, the Alberta Pension Protection Act. This bill and the proposed changes to the Alberta pension have been a pretty hot topic, not only in my constituency, but across the province. It's something that we've debated repeatedly in question period every day, really a lot. And so I think what's great about this bill is that it gives us an opportunity to share some perspectives away from that heated discussion and question period and to really get into what some of the issues might be with this particular bill. I've kind of broken my thoughts down into a few categories here. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is just really retirement security. The Banff-Kananaskis riding is full of people who work very hard and work very hard to make a living on a landscape that is sometimes difficult. So, whether we're talking about cattle ranchers or farmers to small businesses or medium-sized businesses, my riding is filled with people who work really hard in markets that are sometimes not as predictable. We just heard a few weeks ago, or last week, the Minister of Tourism Sport was saying how the Alberta economy has recovered since the pandemic, and the tourism sector has recovered since the pandemic. And that might be true in a lot of parts of the province, but it isn't true for Banff-Kananaskis, Mr. Speaker. The tourism sector is still recovering with a lack of international travel. And I'm sharing this because retirement security, therefore, becomes critical for people in Banff-Kananaskis and in Alberta to feel that their hard work will pay off, that all of their years of working hard in unpredictable markets and in challenging situations and in challenging weather will pay off with retirement security. That retirement security is provided by the Canada Pension Plan and has been provided by the Canada Pension Plan for a long time. And it is that sentiment that causes people in my riding to literally stop me in the street and say, please don't let the government take away our Canada pension. There is a genuine fear and concern amongst people in my riding that creating an Alberta pension plan will affect their retirement security and change their ability to live comfortably in retirement. That's hard because we all work very hard. We're all working hard right now here in this house, and I would like to know that when it comes time for me to retire, that the Canada Pension Plan will be there to support my retirement. Constituents in my riding are concerned about that. They have a lot of questions about how this change would affect them, how it would be applied, how long it will take, and how much it will cost. But the primary question that I get asked by my constituents is why? Why are we doing this? Why are we exploring this ridiculous idea of taking something that's working and creating something that we don't know if it will work? If we have the certainty of a Canada Pension Plan, why do we want to fix something that's not broken? I'm only saying this because I'm conveying to you and to all members of this House through you, Mr. Speaker, what I am hearing from my constituents. This is what people are telling me when I'm walking down the street. This bill, Bill 2, proposes that there be a referendum for changes to the pension, but it doesn't guarantee a referendum and it doesn't protect our pensions over the long term. It's actually a little redundant with Bill 1 from this session already because it talks about referendums, but it still doesn't guarantee the transparency of how the question will be developed, if it will be debated in the House, and who will be developing the question. And that's important because as we saw with the last referendum around daylight savings, how a question is phrased or framed becomes very important in how people choose to answer it. Something as important and critical as our pensions should not be something that we take lightly. And it should be something that all members in this House have an opportunity to discuss, but it should also be something that all Albertans have an opportunity to engage in and participate in. And with that, I just want to take a little moment to talk about public consultation versus public engagement. So people in this House won't know this about me. Hi. I defer to my colleague for the intervention.
Oh, you do not absolutely need.
Is that what?
First speaker.
The first speech after the motion.
My bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
No intervention.
No. Okay. Okay. Fine. I won't then. Okay. You didn't know that. Thank you very much. I have experience in my life prior to being an MLA in conducting public engagement and consultation with multiple stakeholders. It's part of why I chose to run for the MLA of Banff-Kananaskis, because I know how complicated and complex a proper consultation process is, but I also have seen how valuable that can be in truly effectively engaging communities in conversation. There's a difference between engagement and consultation. Engagement is a process whereby you gather people and you tell them your fabulous idea, and you may or may not ask them questions about what they think about it, and you may or may not take their input to influence the content of your idea. Consultation, on the other hand, is an opportunity for you to suggest that you may have an idea to people and to gather input and perspective, which then influences the content of that idea. What we are seeing the government do right now around pensions is not consultation. It is barely engagement. But something this important requires meaningful and effective dialogue with Albertans in a way that they feel consulted, not engaged. Albertans should feel that their input informs the decision, not that they are being talked to, but that they are participating in the conversation and in the decision making. This government sometimes has a pattern of taking an attitude of, don't worry about it, we got it. And this whole pension conversation reminds me of that. Phone-in town halls, no meetings in person, giving Albertans an opportunity to look MLAs and ministers in the eye and voice their concerns. That is required when we're talking about something like pensions. So for the fact that this bill doesn't actually provide any opportunity for the referendum question to be discussed in this House through a motion is a significant gap. It doesn't give an opportunity for Albertans to be effectively consulted in what they will be asked. The other important difference between engagement and consultation is the education and the knowledge provided to people to help them make the decision that best works for them. So with consultation is usually a back and forth conversation, and in that conversation, thorough background information is provided. In regards to pensions, that background information needs to be nonpartisan, non-biased, and it needs to be factual. There you go. I was going to say accurate, but factual also works. It shouldn't be something that we end up debating in question period around what the number is or how much money will be transferred, because we should be able to have confidence in those numbers from the get-go. The reality is we don't. And so it turns into a big discussion about who said what and who said this, and at the end of the day, what we're talking about is people's retirement security. My mom is a retired Albertan, and she's worked in this province her whole entire life. I, as her daughter, am concerned if her retirement security is at risk, mostly because that probably means she'll be living in my basement for once instead of the other way around. Not that that's too bad. I mean, I would love to have my mom in my basement. She's pretty great. But we need to be able to ensure that Albertans have that security and that their parents have that security, because this is what's important here. This is another example of the provincial government trying to push a decision on Albertans that they're not ready for and that they don't want. Earlier today in question period, I asked a question about a housing development in the town of Canmore. In question period, you can't really get into the details, but the fact of the matter is the Three Sisters Mountain Development stands to double the population of the community of Canmore. This comes with a range of impacts that the local community is very concerned about. And that is why the town council rejected the ASP from the town of Canmore. But the ASP from Three Sisters Development. But when the town council rejected that ASP, a provincial body stepped in and said, no, you must accept this. And that was the thing that the town of Canmore appealed and lost. But the point of the matter is that this is another example of the province stepping in and telling Albertans what it needs. But Albertans are telling you loud and clear what they need is a Canada Pension Plan, and that's what we have. And we're not listening. We're not listening to the needs of Albertans when it comes to this massive development in Canmore, and we're not listening to the needs of Albertans when it comes to a Canada Pension Plan either. And that is what we are here to do. We are elected by Albertans to stand in this room and represent the needs of our constituents. And sometimes we get a little lost in the fray, I think, of the heated discussion and the moment of the time. But we need to remember that I represent the 44,000 plus people that live in the Banff-Kananaskis riding. That is always my #1 priority. And when I have older people, I don't want to call them elderly, but just older than me, let's say, people stopping me in the street with young people who are retired, stopping me in the street with literal fear in their eyes, I am concerned. There are many questions I also have about how this bill would be applied and its timing. What happens when people move provinces, Mr. Speaker, which they do all the time? I myself have lived in British Columbia for a while, but I came back to Alberta because this is my place. But what would happen if I left Alberta in the twilight years of my career, maybe in the last 5 years? Now I'd be making a Canada pension again. Would I get an Alberta pension? Would I be starting a new pension? What happens if it's the other way around and I live in Canada and I move to Alberta for a few years and back? When I do finally retire, do I end up with 2 pensions? It's confusing. And if I'm confused, you better believe that Albertans are confused, which takes us back to the difference between engagement and consultation. Consultation involves the provision of background information so that people can make their own choices. If Albertans felt like they had sufficient information, they wouldn't be stopping me in the street with fear in their eyes, asking me to stop this conversion from a Canada pension to an Alberta pension, because they would know already what decision they wanted to make. But the reality is they don't, because the information provision has been bad. Rather than having adequate background information for Albertans to be able to make their own decisions, this government has chosen to spend $7.5 million on convincing Albertans that this is the right thing to do. Rather than having adequate public consultation, this government has chosen to have an online survey that doesn't even ask people if they want to leave the pension. Rather than having adequate consultation, this government has chosen to do a series of telephone town halls where people don't even have the opportunity to look an MLA in the eye and share their concerns. And I can tell you, when I'm stopped in the street by my constituents who voice concern about this, it's looking in their eyes that has convinced me that they don't want this change. We expect legislators to be forward-thinking. We expect legislators to have a vision of what they're aiming for. And this bill does not do that. This bill says that contribution rates cannot be higher than they are right now. But does that mean that if a pensioner right now makes $1,300 a month, that a pensioner in 2075 will also get $1,300 a month? How will inflation affect that? That answer is not in this bill either. What about people who move provinces? What about families and children? What about grandparents who are raising their grandkids? None of the answers are contained in this bill. I come from a riding where tourism is a cornerstone of our economy. And tourism as an industry is very forward-thinking. It's all about creating a vision and creating what you want your community to be, and then creating the services and the products that make it that. I come from a constituency full of people who are forward-thinking, and this bill does not represent their ability and their potential to look ahead to the future. In so doing, I also have questions about the timing of this bill. It's very interesting to me that we are debating and talking about an Alberta Pension Protection Act. Sorry, that's a lot of long words. It's interesting that we're talking about an Alberta Pension Protection Act when we haven't even completed the consultation in air quotes, around the pension. So we're kind of putting the cart before the horse here. We're asking Albertans, what do you think about an Alberta pension plan? And they're very clearly saying they hate the idea. But aside from that, we're now also debating a bill about how to create an Alberta pension plan. But we haven't even finished the conversation with Albertans about whether or not they want to do this. So it really raises concerns for me as what are we doing here? Like, we are wasting taxpayer dollars, we're wasting taxpayer time every moment that we talk about a bill where the public consultation isn't even completed. And I'm standing here literally wasting time talking about a bill that could be moot if Albertans decide that they don't want this. Oh, wait, quick fact check, Albertans don't want this. They have said that time and time again, and they keep saying it every time we have a town hall, every time people stop me in the street. They don't want this. I really don't know why we're here talking about it. I'd way rather be talking about things that are important to my riding, like housing or housing. Did I mention housing? Part 2 of this bill creates parameters of what an Alberta pension plan needs to have and rules on initial transfer of funds and establishment of the APP. But we haven't even decided that we're going to have an APP. So the fact that we're putting a bill on the floor open for debate really suggests to Albertans that the results of this consultation doesn't matter, because we're already putting in the legal framework to make it so. And that means that this is another example of why Albertans cannot trust the UCP.
It's going to cost more.
It's going to cost more money, it's going to take more time, and we don't even want it. So over time, there have been multiple examples of things that have happened that have demonstrated that we can't trust this government to honor the priorities of Albertans. We've talked a lot today about gravy trains and all choo-choo and all kinds of things that really suggest that this government wants to prioritize their friends and donors and connections above the needs of Albertans. The fact that we are debating a bill prior to public consultation being completed is another example of this government choosing to prioritize its own needs over the needs and wants of Albertans.
Completely toned down.
Should this bill move further through this process, there are some required amendments that we will most clearly discuss at that time, but we definitely need to see a clarification in when referendums will be held. We need to require that a draft Alberta pension plan will be shared prior to a referendum so that Albertans know what the referendum question is and they know what they are choosing. We need to make sure that education is provided to Albertans that is nonpartisan, that is provided, it is thorough and whole and scientifically based, and we need to make sure that Albertans understand that information so that they are prepared to make the decision that best serves them. We need to make sure that the referendum question is brought to the House as a motion. It needs to be discussed in here. Developing a referendum question is difficult. The words matter. How people interpret it matters. All of that will change how they vote. If we don't have the opportunity to discuss it here in this House, we are missing an opportunity to make sure that the question is clear and asks what we want it to ask and will be interpreted by Albertans accordingly. In closing, I find this bill disappointing. I think it's really disappointing to have a conversation before public consultation is completed, especially on a topic that Albertans have been very clear on not wanting. Thank you.